Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mitchell adjusted her uniform one final time before stepping out of the military transport vehicle. The hot Afghan sun beat down mercilessly on the forward operating base, creating waves of heat that distorted the distant mountains. She had been deployed to this remote outpost for 3 months now, leading a specialized intelligence unit that worked closely with Navy SEAL teams conducting high-priority operations. Sarah had always been different from her peers. Growing up in a small town in Montana, she was the daughter of a Vietnam veteran who taught her that respect was earned, not given. Her father, Master Sergeant Robert Mitchell, had instilled in her the values of hard work, determination, and never backing down from a challenge. When she announced her intention to join the military at 18, he simply nodded and said, "Make sure you're ready to prove yourself every single day." The path to her current position had been anything but easy. Sarah had graduated from the Naval Academy with honors, specializing in intelligence operations and strategic planning. Her academic excellence was matched only by her physical capabilities. She could outrun most of her male counterparts, had earned expert marksman ratings with multiple weapon systems, and possessed an analytical mind that could process complex battlefield intelligence faster than most computers. However, being a woman in the military, especially in special operations circles, meant constantly facing skepticism and having to prove herself repeatedly. She had learned to develop thick skin, but some days the casual dismissals and questioning of her abilities still stung more than she cared to admit. The forward operating base was a stark reminder of the harsh realities of war. Concrete barriers, razor wire, and sandbags created a fortress-like environment where the sounds of helicopters and distant artillery were as common as morning coffee. Sarah's unit occupied a small compound within the larger base, where they analyzed intelligence gathered from various sources and coordinated with special operations teams. As she walked toward the briefing room, Sarah noticed a group of Navy SEALs gathered near the helicopter landing pad. They had just returned from a 48-hour reconnaissance mission in the mountains, and their faces showed the exhaustion that came with operating in hostile territory. She recognized several of them from previous briefings, including their team leader, Chief Petty Officer Marcus Rodriguez. Rodriguez was a 15-year veteran with multiple combat deployments under his belt. He was respected by his men and had a reputation for getting the job done, but Sarah had noticed a certain attitude in their previous interactions. It was subtle, the way he would look past her when she spoke during briefings, or how he would address his questions to her male subordinates, even when she was clearly in charge of the intelligence briefing. The briefing room was filled with the usual mix of personnel: Marines, Army Rangers, Air Force pilots, and the SEAL team. Sarah took her position at the front of the room, spreading out detailed maps and satellite imagery on the large table. The mission they were discussing involved a high-value target that intelligence suggested was moving through their area of operations within the next 72 hours. "Gentlemen," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the room, "we have confirmation that Hassan al-Maziri will be traveling through grid reference 74 Alpha tomorrow night. Our sources indicate he'll be moving with a small security detail, approximately 6 to 8 personnel." She pointed to specific locations on the map, highlighting potential insertion points, escape routes, and areas where civilian presence might complicate the operation. Her analysis was thorough and professional, drawing on months of studying enemy movement patterns and local geography. "The window for interdiction is approximately 4 hours," she continued, "between 2200 hours and 0200 hours local time. Weather conditions should be optimal, with clear skies and minimal wind." Chief Rodriguez leaned back in his chair, a slight smirk playing across his face. He exchanged glances with some of his teammates before speaking up. "Excuse me, Lieutenant Commander," he said, putting an unusual emphasis on her rank, "but have you actually been outside the wire? I mean, really outside, where people are shooting at you?" The room fell silent. Sarah felt the familiar tightness in her chest that came with these moments, but her expression remained neutral. She had learned long ago that showing emotion in these situations only provided ammunition for those who questioned her capabilities. "Chief Rodriguez," she replied evenly, "I've been outside the wire on 17 occasions during this deployment, including 2 direct action missions where my intelligence analysis was critical to mission success. Is there something specific about my briefing that you'd like clarified?" Rodriguez chuckled, and a few of his teammates joined in. "Look, no offense, but sitting in an air-conditioned truck with a laptop isn't exactly what I'd call combat experience. Maybe we should have someone with actual trigger time brief us on operations in hostile territory. Sarah's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but her voice remained steady. Chief, my role is to provide you with the intelligence you need to successfully complete your missions and bring your men home safely. If you have concerns about the accuracy or completeness of my analysis, I'm happy to address them. I'm sure you are, Rodriguez said, his tone becoming more condescending. But here's the thing, Lieutenant Commander. When my boys and I are out there getting shot at, we need to know that the person giving us intelligence actually understands what combat looks like. We need someone who's been in the fight, not someone who learned about war from textbooks at the academy. The tension in the room was palpable. Some of the other personnel shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while Rodriguez's teammates seemed to enjoy the spectacle. Sarah could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on her, waiting to see how she would respond. Chief Rodriguez, she said, her voice taking on a slightly harder edge, I understand your concerns about experience. Let me share some of my background that might not be in my official file. Before coming to this deployment, I spent 8 months embedded with special operations units in Iraq. During that time, I participated in over 30 direct action missions, including hostage rescues, high-value target captures, and reconnaissance operations. She paused, letting that information sink in before continuing. I've been shot at, I've returned fire, and I've seen good men die because of bad intelligence. That's exactly why I take my job so seriously and why I expect the same level of professionalism from everyone in this room. Rodriguez's smirk faded slightly, but he wasn't finished. That's all very impressive, Lieutenant Commander, but the fact remains that you've never had to carry a wounded teammate out of a firefight or make split-second life-or-death decisions with bullets flying over your head. There's a difference between being along for the ride and actually leading men in combat. Sarah felt a flush of anger rise in her cheeks, but she forced herself to remain calm. She had dealt with attitudes like this throughout her career, and she knew that losing her composure would only validate Rodriguez's assumptions about her capabilities. You're right, Chief, she said quietly. I've never had to carry a wounded teammate out of a firefight, but I've had to live with the knowledge that 3 Marines died in Fallujah because I missed a detail in my intelligence analysis. I've had to write letters to the families of soldiers who didn't come home because the information I provided wasn't complete enough. The room had become completely silent now. Sarah's voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before, a depth of pain and responsibility that was impossible to fake. So, when I brief you on a mission, she continued, I'm not just reading from script or regurgitating information from manual. Every detail I give you has been cross-referenced, verified, and analyzed because I know that the lives of your men depend on the accuracy of what I tell you. And if you think that responsibility weighs any less heavily on me because I'm a woman or because I happen to be an officer, then you're gravely mistaken. Rodriguez opened his mouth to respond, but Sarah held up a hand, silencing him. However, she said, if you have legitimate concerns about my analysis or my capabilities, I invite you to review my track record. In the past 3 months, intelligence provided by my unit has led to the successful completion of 12 missions with 0 friendly casualties. We've identified and neutralized 17 IED threats before they could harm coalition forces, and we provided real-time battlefield intelligence that has saved countless lives. She gathered up her papers and maps, her movements precise and controlled. Now, if there are no further questions about the mission briefing, I suggest we focus on the task at hand. Hassan al-Maziri is a high-value target who has been responsible for the deaths of American service members. Tomorrow night, we have an opportunity to take him off the battlefield permanently. I would hope that we can put aside personal differences long enough to ensure that mission succeeds. As Sarah prepared to leave the briefing room, Rodriguez called out to her, Lieutenant Commander, wait. His tone was different now, less confrontational but still skeptical. Look, I didn't mean any personal offense. It's just that my men's lives are on the line, and I need to know that the people providing support understand what we're up against out there. Sarah turned back to face him, her expression neutral. Chief Rodriguez, I understand your concerns, and I respect your dedication to your men. But questioning my competence in front of a room full of personnel based on assumptions about my gender or experience doesn't protect your men. It undermines the entire intelligence operation and creates division when we need unity. Maybe you're right, Rodriguez admitted, though his tone suggested he wasn't entirely convinced. But you have to understand, we've been let down by intelligence before. Bad information has cost us good men, and when someone who looks like they've never been in a real fight starts telling us how to do our jobs, it raises red flags. Sarah nodded slowly. I do understand, Chief, and you're right to be cautious. But judging someone's capabilities based on their appearance or gender is just as dangerous as relying on bad intelligence. You might miss the very person who could save your life. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a Marine sergeant who handed Sarah a sealed envelope marked with high-priority classifications. She opened it quickly, scanning the contents with growing urgency. Gentlemen, she announced to the room, we've just received updated intelligence on Al-Maziri's location. The timeline has been moved up. He's expected to be in our area of operations tonight, not tomorrow. The atmosphere in the room immediately shifted from personal tension to professional focus. Rodriguez and his team began gathering their equipment while Sarah spread out new maps and satellite imagery. The insertion point remains the same, Sarah continued, but the extraction will need to be modified due to increased enemy presence in the surrounding area. I'm also seeing intelligence that suggests Al-Maziri may have additional security personnel with him, possibly up to 12 individuals. Rodriguez studied the new information, his earlier hostility temporarily set aside as he focused on the tactical situation. What's the confidence level on this intelligence? High, Sarah replied. Multiple sources, including signal intercepts and human intelligence assets. The information has been corroborated through 3 separate channels. Despite his earlier skepticism, Rodriguez found himself impressed by the thoroughness of Sarah's analysis. The intelligence package she had prepared included detailed photographs of the target area, profiles of known enemy personnel, and contingency plans for various scenarios that could develop during the mission. Lieutenant Commander, he said, his tone more respectful than before, this is solid work. My apologies for earlier. I should have reviewed your record before making assumptions. Sarah nodded, accepting the partial apology while remaining focused on the mission. Thank you, Chief. Right now, the most important thing is ensuring your team has everything they need to complete this operation successfully. As the briefing concluded and personnel began filing out of the room, Sarah couldn't help but feel a familiar mixture of frustration and determination. She had proven herself countless times over the course of her career, yet she continued to face skepticism and challenges that her male counterparts rarely encountered. But she also knew that moments like these were opportunities to demonstrate her capabilities and earn the respect of those who doubted her. Every successful mission, every piece of accurate intelligence, every life saved was a step toward changing perceptions and opening doors for the women who would follow in her footsteps. The next few hours would be crucial, not just for the success of the mission, but for her ongoing efforts to prove that competence and courage had nothing to do with gender. As she prepared the final intelligence briefing for Rodriguez's team, Sarah Mitchell was determined to ensure that this operation would be another success story in her growing record of achievement. The operation began at precisely 21:30 hours. Sarah sat in the Tactical Operations Center, monitoring multiple screens that displayed real-time intelligence feeds, communications traffic, and drone surveillance footage of the target area. The SEAL team had inserted successfully and was now moving toward the suspected location of Hassan Al-Maziri. Overwatch, this is Alpha Team. Rodriguez's voice crackled through the communication system. We have eyes on the target compound, confirming multiple heat signatures inside the primary building. Sarah leaned forward, studying the thermal imaging feed from the overhead drone. The intelligence picture was developing exactly as her analysis had predicted. Al-Maziri's security detail was positioned at strategic points around the compound, and the thermal signatures indicated the presence of approximately 10 to 12 individuals. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch, Sarah responded into her headset. Thermal imaging confirms your count. Be advised, we're picking up additional movement to your northwest, approximately 200 meters from your position. Appears to be a roving patrol, 3 individuals. Copy that, Overwatch. We see them now. Sarah coordinated with the drone operators to maintain visual coverage of both the primary target and the patrol elements. Her analysis had anticipated this type of security arrangement, and she had prepared contingency plans for multiple scenarios. 20 minutes into the operation, Rodriguez's voice came through with a note of urgency. Overwatch, we have a problem. The target building has significantly more occupants than anticipated. We're counting at least 20 heat signatures, possibly more. This doesn't match our intelligence estimates. Sarah felt a moment of doubt creep in her mind. Had she missed something in her analysis? She quickly pulled up additional intelligence reports and cross-referenced them with the current tactical picture. Something wasn't adding up. Alpha Team, hold your position, she commanded. I'm reviewing additional intelligence sources. She rapidly accessed Signal's intelligence databases, looking for any communications traffic that might explain the increased enemy presence. Within minutes, she found what she was looking for. Intercepted radio communications from earlier in the day indicating that Al-Maziri had called for additional security due to intelligence suggesting coalition forces were planning an operation in the area. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch, Sarah transmitted. The increased enemy presence is confirmed. Target received warning of potential coalition activity and called for reinforcements. However, this actually works in our favor. How do you figure that, Overwatch? Rodriguez asked, skepticism evident in his voice. The additional security personnel are local militia, not trained fighters, Sarah explained as she analyzed the intelligence data in real time. They'll be poorly equipped and inexperienced. More importantly, their presence confirms that our target is definitely in that building. He wouldn't call for extra security unless he was planning to be there personally. Rodriguez considered this information for several seconds before responding. Understood, Overwatch. Recommend we proceed with the operation. Sarah studied the tactical situation carefully. The increased enemy presence did complicate matters, but her analysis suggested that the SEAL team's superior training and equipment would still give them a significant advantage. Moreover, this might be their only opportunity to capture or eliminate Al-Maziri for months. Affirmative, Alpha Team. Recommend you proceed, but with modified approach. Suggest simultaneous breach on north and south entrances to create confusion among the untrained militia elements. Copy that, Overwatch. Moving to execute. As the SEAL team began their final approach, Sarah coordinated with supporting elements to ensure they had backup available if needed. She also maintained constant communication with higher command, keeping them informed of the developing situation. The operation unfolded with precision. The simultaneous breaches created exactly the confusion Sarah had predicted among the militia fighters, allowing the SEAL team to quickly establish control of the building. Within 15 minutes, they had secured the target and eliminated or captured the majority of enemy combatants. Overwatch, this is Alpha Team, Rodriguez reported. Package secured. Minimal friendly casualties, 1 minor shrapnel wound. Ready for extraction. Sarah coordinated the extraction, ensuring that helicopter support was properly positioned and that the route back to base was clear of enemy activity. As the operation concluded successfully, she felt a sense of professional satisfaction. Despite the complications, her intelligence analysis had proven accurate, and her real-time tactical recommendations had contributed to the mission's success. When the SEAL team returned to base several hours later, Rodriguez sought out Sarah in the intelligence office. His demeanor was noticeably different from their earlier interaction. Lieutenant Commander, he said, removing his helmet and setting down his gear, I owe you an apology. And my thanks. Sarah looked up from her post-mission reports. Thank you, Chief. I'm just glad the operation was successful. It was more than successful, Rodriguez continued. Your intelligence was spot on, and your real-time analysis during the operation probably saved American lives tonight. When you recommended the simultaneous breach, you were absolutely right about how those militia fighters would react. I appreciate that, Chief Rodriguez, Sarah replied. Your team executed the mission flawlessly despite the complications. Rodriguez nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. Look, Lieutenant Commander, I was out of line earlier today. I made assumptions about you based on my own prejudices, and that was wrong. You've proven yourself tonight, and, frankly, you shouldn't have had to. Sarah studied his face, seeing what appeared to be genuine remorse. I appreciate your honesty, Chief. We all have biases we need to work through. What matters is that we can recognize them and move past them. You're more diplomatic than I would be if someone questioned my competence the way I questioned yours, Rodriguez admitted. How do you deal with that kind of treatment? Sarah leaned back in her chair, considering the question. It's not easy, she said finally. There are days when it's exhausting to constantly prove yourself. But I remind myself that I'm not just representing myself. Every success I have makes it a little easier for the next woman who comes along. That's a heavy burden to carry, Rodriguez observed. It is, Sarah agreed. But it's also a responsibility I accept willingly. Change doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without people being willing to push boundaries and challenge assumptions. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain James Harrison, the base commander. He was a career Marine with over 20 years of service, known for his no-nonsense approach and his ability to cut through military bureaucracy when necessary. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, Captain Harrison said as he entered the intelligence office, "I've been reviewing the after-action reports from tonight's operation. Excellent work." "Thank you, sir," Sarah replied, standing at attention. "At ease," Harrison said, then turned to Rodriguez. "Chief, I understand Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's intelligence analysis was instrumental in the success of your mission." "Yes, sir," Rodriguez confirmed. Her real-time tactical recommendations during the operation were outstanding. She adapted to changing circumstances and provided guidance that directly contributed to our success. Captain Harrison nodded approvingly. "That's what I like to hear. Teamwork and mutual respect are what make these operations successful." He paused, looking directly at Rodriguez. "I also understand there were some initial concerns about Lieutenant Commander Mitchell's capabilities." Rodriguez shifted uncomfortably. "Sir, I expressed some reservations earlier that were unfounded and inappropriate. I've apologized to Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, and I can assure you that my team and I have complete confidence in her abilities." "Good," Harrison said curtly, "because I've got news that's going to require even closer cooperation between our units." He pulled out a classified folder and spread several documents on Sarah's desk. "We've received intelligence indicating that Al-Maziri's capture has triggered a response from his organization. They're planning retaliatory attacks against coalition forces, and we believe this base may be a target." Sarah immediately began studying the intelligence reports, her analytical mind processing the information and looking for patterns. "Sir, based on these reports, it looks like they're planning a coordinated attack involving multiple elements. Rocket attacks, infiltration teams, and possibly vehicle-borne improvised explosive devices." "That's our assessment as well," Harrison confirmed, "which is why I'm tasking your intelligence unit to work directly with Chief Rodriguez's team and other special operations elements to develop a comprehensive defense plan." Rodriguez looked at Sarah with newfound respect. "Lieutenant Commander, what do you need from my team?" "I'll need detailed information about your men's capabilities, equipment, and preferred tactical approaches," Sarah replied. "We'll also need to coordinate with the other units on base to ensure our defensive positions are optimized." Over the next several hours, Sarah worked closely with Rodriguez and other team leaders to develop a comprehensive defense plan. Her approach was methodical and thorough, taking into account the capabilities and limitations of each unit while also considering the likely tactics that enemy forces might employ. As they worked together, Rodriguez found himself increasingly impressed by Sarah's tactical knowledge and strategic thinking. Her recommendations were consistently sound, and she demonstrated an understanding of special operations tactics that he hadn't expected. "Lieutenant Commander," he said during a brief break in their planning session, "where did you learn so much about special operations tactics?" "Multiple sources," Sarah replied. "Formal military education, certainly, but also extensive training with various special operations units. I made it a point to understand the capabilities and limitations of every unit I provide intelligence support to." "That explains a lot," Rodriguez said. "Most intelligence officers I've worked with understand the theory, but lack practical knowledge of how special operations actually work in the field. I believe that to be effective in my role, I need to understand not just what information to provide, but how that information will be used," Sarah explained. "That requires understanding the tactical and operational capabilities of the units I support." Their planning session was interrupted by an urgent communication from base security. Enemy forces had been detected approaching the perimeter, and the attack was beginning earlier than anticipated. "All units, this is Base Defense Control," the voice announced over the communication system. "We have multiple contacts approaching from the north and east. Estimate platoon-sized element with possible vehicle support." Sarah quickly moved to the Tactical Operations Center, where she could monitor the developing situation and provide real-time intelligence support to the defending forces. Rodriguez and his team took up defensive positions according to the plan they had just developed. "Alpha Team, this is Overwatch," Sarah transmitted as she watched the tactical display. Enemy forces are moving in two primary groups. Primary assault element approaching from the north, approximately 30 personnel. Secondary element moving from the east appears to be attempting to flank our defensive positions. Copy. Overwatch, Rodriguez replied. We're in position and ready to engage. As the attack developed, Sarah coordinated intelligence from multiple sources: drone surveillance, ground-based sensors, and reports from defensive positions around the base. She provided real-time updates to the defending forces, helping them anticipate enemy movements and coordinate their response. Alpha Team, be advised, enemy secondary element is moving to position for rocket attack on your location, Sarah warned. Recommend immediate relocation to alternate positions. Rodriguez's team moved just moments before rocket-propelled grenades impacted their previous position. Overwatch, good call. We're repositioning now. The battle continued for over an hour, with Sarah providing continuous intelligence support that helped the defenders anticipate enemy tactics and coordinate effective countermeasures. Her analysis proved crucial in identifying the enemy's main effort and helping direct defensive resources to the most critical points. When the attack was finally repelled, the base had suffered minimal casualties thanks in large part to the effective defensive plan and real-time intelligence support. As the immediate threat passed, Rodriguez sought out Sarah once again. "Lieutenant Commander," he said, his voice carrying a tone of profound respect. "I don't know how to thank you. Your intelligence support tonight saved lives, including probably mine and my men's." Sarah nodded, exhausted but satisfied with the outcome. "That's what we're here for, Chief. To support each other and complete the mission." "It's more than that," Rodriguez insisted. "You've shown me what real professionalism looks like. I was wrong about you from the beginning, and I'm grateful you didn't let my ignorance affect your performance." As the immediate crisis passed and the base began returning to normal operations, Sarah reflected on the events of the past 24 hours. She had once again proven her capabilities under the most challenging circumstances, but more importantly, she had earned the genuine respect of Chief Rodriguez and his team. The experience reinforced her belief that respect was indeed earned through competence, dedication, and performance under pressure. While she knew she would continue to face skepticism and challenges throughout her career, moments like these made all the difficulties worthwhile. 3 weeks had passed since the successful defense of the forward operating base, and the working relationship between Sarah's intelligence unit and Chief Rodriguez's SEAL team had transformed completely. What had begun with skepticism and confrontation had evolved into a partnership based on mutual respect and professional admiration. Sarah found herself working more closely with special operations units than ever before in her career. Her tactical intelligence briefings had become the gold standard for mission planning on the base, and her real-time analysis during operations was requested specifically by multiple unit commanders. On this particular morning, Sarah was reviewing intelligence reports when Captain Harrison entered her office with an expression of unusual gravity. Behind him followed a man she didn't recognize, wearing the dress blues of a Navy commander. "Lieutenant Commander Mitchell," Captain Harrison said formally, "I'd like you to meet Commander David Chun from Naval Special Warfare Command." Sarah stood and rendered a proper salute, which Commander Chun returned crisply. "Sir, welcome to Forward Operating Base Wolverine." "Thank you, Lieutenant Commander," Chun replied, his tone professional but warm. "I've been hearing quite remarkable things about your work here." Captain Harrison and Chief Rodriguez have both provided glowing assessments of your capabilities and contributions to mission success. Sarah felt a flutter of nervousness. High-ranking visitors from Special Warfare Command usually meant significant changes were coming. "Thank you, sir. I've been privileged to work with some outstanding special operations personnel." Commander Chun smiled slightly. "That's exactly the kind of response I expected based on what I've been told about your character. Lieutenant Commander, I'm here because we have a unique opportunity that requires someone with your specific skill set and experience." He gestured toward the chairs in Sarah's small office. "May we sit? This conversation requires some explanation." As they settled into their seats, Commander Chun opened a classified folder he had been carrying. "Lieutenant Commander, are you familiar with the Joint Special Operations Task Force being established to conduct operations against high-value targets throughout the theater?" "I've heard rumors, sir, but no specific details," Sarah replied honestly. "The task force will combine elements from Navy SEALs, Army Delta Force, Marine Force Reconnaissance, and Air Force Special Operations, Chen explained. The mission set will include some of the most sensitive and dangerous operations in the current conflict. Sarah listened intently, wondering where this conversation was leading. The challenge we're facing, Chen continued, is finding an intelligence officer who can work effectively with all these different units. Someone who understands the unique capabilities and operational requirements of each service's special operations forces. Captain Harrison leaned forward in his chair. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell has demonstrated exactly those capabilities here. She's worked successfully with SEAL teams, Marine reconnaissance units, and Army Rangers. Her intelligence analysis and real-time operational support have been consistently outstanding. That's precisely why I'm here, Chen said, looking directly at Sarah. We want you to join the Joint Special Operations Task Force as the primary intelligence officer. It would mean a promotion to commander and assignment to some of the most critical missions in the theater. Sarah felt her heart rate increase. This was the kind of opportunity that could define her entire career, but it also represented a significant leap in responsibility and pressure. Sir, I'm honored by the offer, but I have to ask, why me? There are certainly more senior intelligence officers with more extensive experience. Commander Chen nodded approvingly. That's exactly the right question to ask, and it demonstrates the kind of thoughtful approach we need. The truth is, Lieutenant Commander, that technical experience isn't our primary concern. We need someone who can earn the respect of the most elite warriors in the military, someone who can provide intelligence support under the most extreme circumstances, and someone who won't be intimidated by the egos and attitudes that sometimes come with special operations culture. He paused, studying her face carefully. Based on the reports I've received, including detailed recommendations from Chief Rodriguez and his team, you've already proven you possess all those qualities. Sarah was surprised to hear that Rodriguez had provided recommendations for her advancement. Despite their improved working relationship, she hadn't expected him to actively advocate for her career progression. Sir, I appreciate the confidence, but I want to make sure I understand the full scope of what this assignment would involve, she said. Smart question, Chen replied. The task force will be conducting operations across multiple countries, often with minimal support and in highly contested environments. You would be responsible for intelligence support to operations that could involve anything from hostage rescues to targeted eliminations of terrorist leaders. He leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. I won't sugarcoat this, Lieutenant Commander. The work will be dangerous, the pressure will be intense, and the margin for error will be essentially zero. You'll be working with the most elite and demanding warriors in the American military, and they will expect perfection from you every single time. Sarah considered this soberly. She had worked hard to reach her current position, and she knew that accepting this assignment would mean taking on even greater challenges and responsibilities. But she also recognized that opportunities like this were rare, especially for women in the military. Sir, assuming I were to accept this assignment, when would it begin? Within 2 weeks, Chen replied. The task force is being stood up quickly to respond to developing threats. You would need to complete a brief transition period here, and then report to our headquarters for additional training and integration with the task force elements. Before Sarah could respond, Chief Rodriguez appeared in the doorway of her office. He was still wearing his combat gear, having just returned from a patrol. Excuse me, sir, he said to Captain Harrison, but I was told Commander Chen was here. I want to have a word about Lieutenant Commander Mitchell, if possible. Actually, Chief, your timing is perfect, Chen said. Please come in. Lieutenant Commander Mitchell and I were just discussing her potential assignment to the Joint Special Operations Task Force. Rodriguez's eyes widened slightly. Sir, if you're considering Lieutenant Commander Mitchell for that assignment, I want to go on record as providing my strongest possible recommendation. Sarah looked at Rodriguez with surprise. Despite their improved working relationship, she hadn't expected such strong advocacy from him. Chief Rodriguez, Chen said, I've already reviewed your written recommendations, but I'd like to hear your assessment in person. Rodriguez removed his helmet and took a position at attention. Sir, Lieutenant Commander Mitchell is the finest intelligence officer I've worked with in 15 years of special operations. Her tactical analysis is consistently accurate. Her real-time operational support has saved American lives on multiple occasions, and her ability to adapt to changing circumstances under pressure is exceptional. He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts before continuing. More importantly, sir, She has earned the complete respect and confidence of every special operations warrior on this base. When Lieutenant Commander Mitchell provides intelligence or tactical recommendations, we follow them without question because we know they're based on thorough analysis and sound judgment. Chen nodded, clearly pleased with this assessment. Thank you, Chief. That's exactly the kind of feedback that brought Lieutenant Commander Mitchell to our attention. After Rodriguez departed, Chen turned back to Sarah. Lieutenant Commander, I need an answer within 24 hours. The task force is being activated quickly, and we need to finalize our personnel assignments. Sir, I understand the time constraint, Sarah replied. May I have the evening to consider this decision? Of course, Chen said, standing and extending his hand. Whatever you decide, Lieutenant Commander, know that you've already made a significant impact on special operations in this theater. Your work here has not gone unnoticed at the highest levels. After Chen and Captain Harrison departed, Sarah sat alone in her office, staring at the classified folder Chen had left for her to review. The documents outlined the scope and mission of the Joint Special Operations Task Force, and reading through them, she realized this was potentially the most significant career opportunity she might ever receive. But the decision wasn't just about career advancement. Accepting this assignment would mean leaving behind the team she had built here, the relationships she had established, and the comfortable routine she had developed. It would mean starting over in an even more challenging and demanding environment. That evening, Sarah found herself walking the perimeter of the base, thinking through the decision she faced. The Afghan night was clear and cool, with stars visible in a way that was impossible in most American cities. She had always found that physical movement helped her process complex decisions. As she walked, she reflected on her journey to this point. From growing up in Montana to graduating from the Naval Academy, from her first assignment as a junior intelligence officer to her current position supporting special operations, every step had been a progression toward greater responsibility and challenge. She thought about her father, Master Sergeant Mitchell, and the values he had instilled in her. He had taught her that growth came from accepting challenges that pushed her beyond her comfort zone, and that true success was measured not by personal advancement, but by the positive impact she could have on others. Her thoughts were interrupted by the approach of Chief Rodriguez, who was also taking an evening walk around the base perimeter. Lieutenant Commander, he said as their paths crossed, I hope I wasn't out of line earlier, advocating for you without discussing it with you first. Not at all, Chief, Sarah replied. I was surprised, but honored by your recommendation. I didn't expect you to advocate for my advancement. Rodriguez was quiet for a moment before responding. Lieutenant Commander, I owe you more than just an apology for my initial attitude. You taught me something important about leadership and professionalism. What do you mean? When I first met you, I made judgments based on assumptions and prejudices, Rodriguez explained. But instead of responding with anger or resentment, you simply went about proving your competence through your work. You let your performance speak for itself, and you earned my respect the hard way. He paused in his walking, turning to face her directly. That's real leadership, Lieutenant Commander. You changed my mind not through arguments or politics, but through consistent excellence and professionalism. That's the kind of leader the task force needs. Sarah felt touched by his words. Thank you, Chief. That means a great deal coming from you. There's something else, Rodriguez continued. I've been in special operations for 15 years, and I've worked with a lot of intelligence officers. Most of them provide adequate support, but very few truly understand what it means to be part of a special operations team. What makes the difference? Understanding that intelligence support isn't just about providing information, Rodriguez explained. It's about being part of the team, understanding that the decisions you make directly impact the lives of the operators you support. You've demonstrated that understanding consistently. They resumed walking, moving along the base perimeter in comfortable companionship. Chief, Sarah said after a few minutes, can I ask you something honestly? Do you think I'm ready for this level of responsibility? Rodriguez considered the question carefully before answering. Lieutenant Commander, readiness isn't just about experience or technical knowledge. It's about character, judgment, and the ability to perform under pressure. Based on what I've seen, you possess all those qualities. But the task force will be operating at an entirely different level, Sarah pointed out. The stakes will be higher, the pressure more intense. That's true, Rodriguez agreed. But pressure reveals character, it doesn't create it. You've already shown how you respond under pressure, and you've consistently risen to meet every challenge you've faced. Their conversation continued for another hour as they completed their circuit of the base. When they finally parted ways, Sarah felt more confident about her decision, though she still needed to work through the implications carefully. The next morning, Sarah requested a secure video conference with her father. Despite the time difference, Master Sergeant Mitchell was available to speak with his daughter from his home in Montana. "Dad," Sarah said as his familiar face appeared on the screen, "I have a career decision to make, and I could use your advice." She explained the opportunity with the Joint Special Operations Task Force, the responsibilities it would entail, and the challenges she would face. Her father listened carefully, asking occasional questions, but mostly allowing her to articulate her thoughts. "Sarah," he said when she finished, "what does your gut tell you about this decision?" "Honestly, Dad, I'm scared," she admitted. "This is a huge step up in responsibility, and there's a lot of room for things to go wrong." "Fear isn't necessarily a bad thing," her father replied. "It means you understand the magnitude of what you're being asked to do. The question is, do you believe you can rise to meet this challenge?" Sarah thought about his question. Despite her fears, she did believe she could succeed in this assignment. Her experience over the past several months had given her confidence in her abilities and her capacity to earn the respect of special operations personnel. "Yes, Dad, I think I can do it." "Then you have your answer," Master Sergeant Mitchell said with a smile. "Remember what I taught you. Respect is earned through competence and character. You've already proven you have both. Now it's time to take them to the next level." After ending the video conference, Sarah sat quietly in her office for several minutes, processing her father's words and her own feelings about the decision. She realized that her hesitation wasn't really about her capabilities or readiness for the assignment. It was about leaving behind the safety and comfort of what had become familiar. But growth required stepping outside one's comfort zone, and this opportunity represented the chance to make a significant impact on some of the most important military operations of her generation. More importantly, succeeding in this assignment would open doors not just for herself, but for other women who aspire to serve in similar roles. Sarah picked up her secure phone and dialed Commander Chen's number. 8 months later, Commander Sarah Mitchell stood in the briefing room of a classified location, addressing an audience that would have intimidated most military personnel. Seated before her were members of the most elite special operations units in the American military: Navy SEAL Team 6 operators, Army Delta Force commandos, Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance Marines, and Air Force Special Operations personnel. The Joint Special Operations Task Force had become one of the most successful units in the theater, conducting over 40 high-risk missions with a success rate that had drawn attention from the highest levels of military command. Sarah's role as the primary intelligence officer had evolved beyond anything she had imagined when she first accepted the assignment. "Gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying the confidence that came from months of proven success, "tonight's operation represents our most significant challenge to date. Our target is Abdul Rahman Qasim, the operational commander responsible for coordinating terrorist activities across 3 countries." The room was silent as Sarah outlined the intelligence picture. Unlike her early days supporting Chief Rodriguez's team, there were no skeptical looks or questioning glances. The operators in this room had seen her work consistently produce successful outcomes, and they regarded her briefings with the same attention they gave to equipment checks and mission rehearsals. "Qasim will be meeting with 2 subordinate commanders at a compound approximately 40 kilometers from our location," Sarah continued, pointing to detailed satellite imagery displayed on multiple screens around the room. "The window for this meeting is narrow, approximately 90 minutes, and it represents the first time we've had actionable intelligence on his location in over 6 months." Master Chief Petty Officer James Tank Thompson, the senior enlisted leader of the SEAL element, raised his hand. "Commander, what's the intelligence confidence level on the timing?" "High confidence," Sarah replied immediately. "Multiple signal intercepts corroborated by human intelligence assets. We also have confirmation from imagery analysis showing increased security preparations at the target location." Thompson nodded, satisfied with the assessment. Sarah had learned that Thompson was perhaps the most demanding audience she had ever faced. A 23-year veteran with over 100 combat missions, he had initially been skeptical of having any intelligence officer, male or female, integrated so closely with their operations. But after several successful missions, he had become one of her strongest supporters. The compound presents several tactical challenges, Sarah continued, highlighting different areas on the detailed floor plans she had developed. Primary structure is 2 stories with limited entry points. Target has established multiple escape routes, and we assess that his security detail consists of at least 12 experienced fighters. She moved to a different display, showing the surrounding terrain. Additionally, enemy forces maintain checkpoints on 3 of the 4 primary roads leading to the compound. Our insertion will need to avoid these positions while still allowing rapid extraction once the operation is complete. Colonel Marcus Hayes, the task force commander, studied the intelligence materials carefully. Hayes was a career Army officer who had commanded special operations units for over 15 years. When Sarah first joined the task force, she had been concerned about working for someone with no previous experience with female officers in combat roles. However, Hayes had proven to be focused purely on results, and her consistent performance had earned his complete confidence. Commander Mitchell, Hayes said, "What's your recommendation for approach and timing?" Sarah had anticipated this question and had spent hours developing multiple courses of action. "Sir, I recommend a helicopter insertion at Landing Zone Delta, approximately 3 kilometers from the target. This approach avoids the established checkpoints while providing multiple extraction options." She activated another display showing the timeline analysis. Optimal timing would be 2300 hours local time. Target meeting is scheduled to begin at 23:30, which gives us sufficient time to position our forces while ensuring the targets are present before we initiate the operation. Thompson leaned forward in his chair. "Commander, what about the 12-man security detail? Any intelligence on their capabilities and equipment?" "Excellent question, Master Chief," Sarah replied, switching to a different intelligence file. "Based on communications intercepts and previous encounters, we assess these are experienced fighters with military training. They're likely equipped with automatic weapons and possibly rocket-propelled grenades." She paused, meeting Thompson's gaze directly. "However, our intelligence indicates they lack night vision capabilities and have limited training in defensive tactics against special operations forces. If we maintain the element of surprise and execute the operation quickly, their numerical advantage should be negated." The briefing continued for another hour, with Sarah addressing dozens of detailed questions about everything from weather conditions to backup extraction routes. Her responses were thorough and confident, reflecting the months she had spent building relationships with intelligence sources and perfecting her analytical methods. As the briefing concluded and the operators began their final preparations, Thompson approached Sarah privately. "Commander," he said, his voice carrying a tone of respect that would have seemed impossible during her early days with Rodriguez, "I wanted you to know that the boys have complete confidence in your intelligence. When you tell us something, we know we can count on it." Sarah felt a surge of pride at his words. Earning the trust of operators like Thompson had been one of her primary goals since joining the task force. "Thank you, Master Chief. That means everything to me." "There's something else," Thompson continued. "Word has come down from higher headquarters that some very senior people have been paying attention to this task force's success rate. Apparently, there's talk about using our model for other special operations units." Sarah was intrigued by this information. "What kind of model?" "Fully integrated intelligence support," Thompson explained. "Having an intelligence officer who deploys with the team, participates in mission planning, and provides real-time analysis during operations. Most units still rely on intelligence support that's provided remotely." "That's interesting," Sarah said. "Do you know who specifically has been asking about our operations?" Thompson glanced around to ensure their conversation remained private. "General Morrison has been reviewing our after-action reports personally. Apparently, he's been impressed enough to ask for detailed briefings on how we structure our intelligence support." General Morrison was the commanding general of all special operations forces in the theater, a 3-star general whose opinions carried enormous weight throughout the military. The idea that he was personally reviewing their operations and considering their methods for broader application was both exciting and somewhat intimidating. "Master Chief," Sarah said, "do you think our integration model would work with other units?" Thompson considered the question carefully. "I think it would, but only with the right kind of intelligence officer. You've succeeded because you understand special operations culture, and you've earned the respect of the operators you support. Not every intelligence officer would be able to do that." Their conversation was interrupted by Colonel Hayes, who was making final rounds before the operation began. "Commander Mitchell," he said, "excellent briefing, as usual. The men are confident and well-prepared. Thank you, sir, Sarah replied. I'll be monitoring the operation from the Tactical Operations Center and providing real-time support as needed. Hayes nodded, then paused before speaking again. Commander, there's something I wanted to discuss with you after tonight's operation. We've received some interesting communications from higher headquarters that I think you should be aware of. Sarah felt a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Communications from higher headquarters could mean anything from commendations to new assignments to investigations. Yes, sir. I'll be available whenever you'd like to discuss it. The operation commenced at precisely 2300 hours. Sarah monitored the mission from the task force's sophisticated Tactical Operations Center, coordinating intelligence from multiple sources and maintaining continuous communication with the assault teams. Overwatch, this is Alpha Team, came Thompson's voice through the communication system. We're approaching the target compound, confirming multiple heat signatures in the primary building. Sarah studied the real-time intelligence feeds, cross-referencing thermal imaging with signals intelligence and human source reporting. Everything was developing exactly as her analysis had predicted. Alpha Team, this is Overwatch, she responded. Thermal imaging confirms presence of 15 to 18 individuals in target building. No change to perimeter security posture. The operation unfolded with the precision that had become characteristic of the task force's missions. The assault teams approached the compound undetected, established Overwatch positions, and prepared for the coordinated breach that would capture or eliminate the target. Overwatch, Alpha Team is in position and ready to execute, Thompson reported. Sarah made one final check of all intelligence sources before giving her assessment. Alpha Team, intelligence picture remains stable. Recommend you are clear to execute. Alpha Team copies. Beginning execution now. The assault lasted less than 10 minutes. The combination of surprise, superior training, and overwhelming firepower allowed the special operations teams to quickly establish control of the compound and secure their objectives. Overwatch, this is Alpha Team, Thompson announced. Primary target secured. Secondary targets also in custody. No friendly casualties. Sarah coordinated the extraction, ensuring that helicopter support was positioned correctly and that the egress route remained clear of enemy activity. As had become routine, the operation concluded successfully with all personnel and objectives secured. Several hours later, as the task force conducted its post-mission debriefing, Colonel Hayes pulled Sarah aside for the conversation he had mentioned earlier. Commander, he said, leading her to his private office, I received a very interesting phone call earlier today from General Morrison's staff. Sarah felt her heart rate increase slightly. Yes, sir. The general has been following our operations closely, and he's been particularly interested in our intelligence integration model, Hayes explained. Apparently, our success rate has been noticed at the highest levels of the Pentagon. He handed her a classified message that had arrived via secure communications. General Morrison wants to meet with you personally to discuss your role in the task force and your recommendations for expanding this model to other units. Sarah read through the message, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness. A personal meeting with a 3-star general represented both an enormous opportunity and a significant responsibility. Sir, she said, do we know what specifically General Morrison wants to discuss? Based on the preliminary conversations his staff had with me, he's considering recommending changes to how intelligence support is provided to special operations units throughout the military, Hayes replied. Your work here has demonstrated that having an intelligence officer fully integrated with operational teams produces significantly better results than traditional support models. Hayes paused, studying her reaction carefully. Commander, this could be a career-defining opportunity. If General Morrison adopts our model and recommends it for broader implementation, you would likely be asked to help develop the training programs and organizational structures needed to make it work. Sarah considered the implications of what Hayes was telling her. Such an assignment would mean helping to reshape how the military approach intelligence support for special operations, potentially affecting thousands of personnel and countless future missions. Sir, when would this meeting with General Morrison take place? Next week, Hayes replied. You would fly to his headquarters for a detailed briefing on our operations and your recommendations for expanding the model. As Sarah walked back to her quarters that night, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. From the initial confrontation with Chief Rodriguez to earning the respect of some of the most elite warriors in the military, every challenge had been a stepping stone toward greater opportunities and responsibilities. She thought about the broader implications of what Hayes had described. If the military adopted their integration model more widely, it would create opportunities for other intelligence officers to work in similar roles. More importantly, it would demonstrate that competence and performance were what mattered in these positions, regardless of gender or background. The next morning brought news that would change everything. Sarah was reviewing intelligence reports when Colonel Hayes burst into her office with an expression of urgent excitement. "Commander," he said, "we just received an urgent tasking directly from General Morrison's headquarters. There's a situation developing that requires our immediate attention and specifically your analytical capabilities." He handed her a folder marked with the highest classification levels. "We have intelligence indicating that a major terrorist attack is being planned against American interests, possibly within the next 72 hours. General Morrison wants our task force to take the lead on developing the response, and he specifically requested that you personally brief him on the intelligence picture." Sarah opened the folder and began scanning the initial reports. The intelligence was fragmented and complex, requiring exactly the kind of analytical synthesis that had become her specialty. "Sir," she said, "when does General Morrison want this briefing?" Hayes checked his watch. "We're wheels up in 2 hours. You'll be briefing the general and his senior staff in 6 hours." As Sarah began gathering her materials and preparing for what would undoubtedly be the most important briefing of her career, she realized that all the challenges, setbacks, and successes of the past months had been preparing her for exactly this moment. The skepticism she had faced from people like Chief Rodriguez, the pressure of proving herself in the most demanding environments, and the responsibility of supporting the most elite military units had all been building toward this opportunity to make a significant impact at the highest levels of military decision-making. The Pentagon's Special Operations Command Center was unlike anything Sarah had ever experienced. The massive room buzzed with activity as intelligence analysts, operations planners, and communications specialists worked at dozens of workstations surrounded by enormous displays showing global intelligence feeds and real-time operational status updates. Commander Sarah Mitchell stood at the center of it all, preparing to brief the most senior special operations leadership in the American military. In front of her sat General Morrison, imposing 3-star general whose reputation for demanding excellence was legendary throughout the Special Forces community. Alongside him were 2 brigadier generals, several colonels, and the senior enlisted leaders from every major special operations unit. "Commander Mitchell," General Morrison said, his voice carrying the authority that came from 3 decades of military leadership, "I understand you've had 6 hours to analyze the intelligence on this developing threat. What's your assessment?" Sarah activated the main display screen, which showed a complex web of intelligence connections she had mapped during the flight to Washington. Her analysis had revealed a pattern that was both more sophisticated and more dangerous than initial reports had suggested. "General, we're looking at a coordinated attack plan targeting multiple American embassies and military installations across 3 different time zones," Sarah began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of the audience. "The intelligence indicates this is not a single terrorist cell, but rather a coordinated effort involving at least 4 separate organizations working together." She highlighted different sections of her analysis on the main display. Signal intercept from the past 72 hours show communications between known terrorist operatives in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Yemen. What's significant is that these communications are using a coordination protocol we haven't seen before, suggesting a level of planning and sophistication that exceeds previous threat assessments. General Morrison leaned forward, studying the intelligence displays intently. "Commander, what makes you confident these separate communications are related to a single coordinated attack?" Sarah had anticipated this question and had prepared a detailed technical analysis to support her conclusion. "Sir, there are several indicators that led to this assessment. First, the timing of the communications corresponds exactly with known operational planning cycles used by these organizations. Second, we've identified specific code phrases that appear in intercepts from all 3 regions." She activated a different display showing communications analysis. Most importantly, we've detected financial transactions that link these organizations in ways we haven't seen before. Money has been moving between accounts associated with each group in amounts consistent with operational funding for major attacks. Brigadier General Patricia Williams, the Senior Intelligence Officer for Special Operations Command, raised her hand. Commander Mitchell, assuming your analysis is correct, what's the timeline for these potential attacks? Based on the pattern of communications and the financial transactions, I assess that the attacks are planned to commence within the next 48 to 72 hours, Sarah replied. The coordination suggests they're waiting for a specific trigger event, likely a single command that will initiate simultaneous operations. General Morrison exchanged glances with his senior staff before speaking again. Commander, what do you recommend for our response? Sarah had spent considerable time during the flight developing response options, drawing on her months of experience working with special operations units and her understanding of their capabilities. Sir, I recommend immediate deployment of special operations teams to each of the threatened locations, she said. However, given the coordination we're seeing from the threat organizations, I believe our response also needs to be coordinated to maximize effectiveness. She activated a new display showing her recommended force deployment. I propose simultaneous operations timed to disrupt their coordination and prevent them from adapting their plans in real time. If we hit them all at once, we prevent any one cell from warning the others. General Morrison studied the proposed plan carefully. Commander, you're recommending one of the largest coordinated special operations efforts we've conducted. Are you confident in the intelligence that supports this assessment? Sarah met his gaze directly. General, I've reviewed this intelligence from every angle I can think of. I've cross-referenced it with historical patterns, verified it through multiple sources, and consulted with subject matter experts on each of the terrorist organizations involved. I'm confident in the assessment. However, she continued, I also want to acknowledge that recommending an operation of this magnitude based on intelligence analysis carries enormous responsibility. If I'm wrong, we'll be deploying significant resources unnecessarily. If I'm right, but we don't act, American lives will be lost. General Morrison nodded approvingly at her honesty. Commander, that's exactly the kind of judgment and responsibility we need in intelligence officers supporting special operations. You've clearly thought through the implications of your recommendations. The meeting was interrupted by an urgent communication from the National Security Agency. A young Air Force officer approached General Morrison and handed him a classified message that had just arrived. After reading the message, General Morrison's expression became grim. Commander Mitchell, we just received additional signal intercepts that appear to corroborate your analysis. NSA is reporting coordinated communications activity that matches the timeline you predicted. Sarah felt a mixture of validation and anxiety. While the additional intelligence supported her assessment, it also meant that the threat was real and imminent. Sir, she said, if the NSA intercepts confirm the coordination timeline, I believe we have less than 48 hours before these attacks commence. General Morrison stood, commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to implement Commander Mitchell's recommended response plan. I want special operations teams deployed to all threatened locations within the next 12 hours. He turned to his operations staff. Colonel Harrison, coordinate with each service component to identify available teams and begin immediate deployment planning. Brigadier General Williams, ensure that intelligence support is positioned to provide real-time analysis during operations. Commander Mitchell, he said, addressing Sarah directly, I want you to coordinate overall intelligence support for this operation. You'll work directly with my staff to ensure that all deployed teams have access to the same intelligence picture and can adapt to developing situations in real time. Sarah felt the weight of the responsibility settling on her shoulders. Coordinating intelligence support for multiple simultaneous special operations represented the most complex challenge she had ever faced. Yes, sir, she replied. I'll need secure communications with each deployed team and access to all relevant intelligence feeds. You'll have whatever you need, General Morrison assured her. Colonel Hayes speaks very highly of your capabilities, and based on this briefing, I understand why. Over the next 18 hours, Sarah found herself at the center of one of the largest coordinated special operations efforts in recent military history. Teams from Navy SEAL units, Army Delta Force, Marine Corps Force Reconnaissance, and Air Force Special Operations were deployed to target locations across 3 countries. From her position in the Pentagon Command Center, Sarah coordinated intelligence support that helped each team adapt to local conditions and threats. Her analysis proved crucial in identifying last-minute changes to enemy plans and ensuring that the operations remained synchronized despite the challenges of operating across multiple time zones. The operations commenced simultaneously at 2300 hours Eastern Time. Sarah monitored communications from all deployed teams while coordinating with intelligence agencies to provide real-time updates on enemy activities. Overwatch, this is Alpha Team, came the familiar voice of Master Chief Thompson from the team deployed to Afghanistan. We have eyes on target location, confirming significant activity consistent with operational preparations. Beta Team checking in, reported the team leader from Iraq. Target compound shows multiple heat signatures and increased security posture. Similar reports came in from the teams in Yemen and Syria, confirming that Sarah's intelligence analysis had accurately identified genuine threats at each location. All teams, this is Overwatch, Sarah transmitted to the coordinated teams. Intelligence picture confirms threat is genuine at all locations. You are cleared to execute coordinated operations. The simultaneous raids were executed with precision that reflected months of preparation and training. Within 45 minutes, all teams reported successful completion of their objectives with minimal casualties and significant intelligence capture. Overwatch, Alpha Team reports primary objective secured, Thompson announced. Multiple suspects in custody and significant intelligence materials captured. Similar reports came in from each team, indicating that the coordinated operation had successfully disrupted what intelligence analysis later confirmed was indeed a planned series of coordinated terrorist attacks. As the immediate operational phase concluded and teams began their extraction procedures, General Morrison approached Sarah in the command center. "Commander Mitchell," he said, "outstanding work. Your intelligence analysis and coordination were instrumental in the success of this operation." "Thank you, sir," Sarah replied, feeling exhausted but deeply satisfied with the outcome. "There's something else," General Morrison continued. "Based on your performance over the past day and the consistent success of the task force you've been supporting, I'm recommending you for immediate promotion to captain and assignment as the senior intelligence officer for all special operations in this theater." Sarah felt her breath catch. The promotion to captain would represent a significant advancement in her career, but the assignment would mean even greater responsibilities and challenges. "Sir, I'm honored by the recommendation," she said carefully. "May I ask what the position would entail?" "You would be responsible for coordinating intelligence support for all special operations units in the theater," General Morrison explained. "You would also be tasked with developing and implementing the integrated intelligence support model that has been so successful with your current task force." He paused, studying her reaction. "Commander, this position would make you one of the most influential intelligence officers in special operations, with the opportunity to shape how we conduct these operations for years to come." As Sarah considered the magnitude of what General Morrison was offering, her thoughts turned to the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a skeptical Navy SEAL who had questioned her competence to the three-star general who was now offering her one of the most significant positions available to an intelligence officer, every challenge had prepared her for this opportunity. "General," she said, "I accept the assignment and the responsibility that comes with it." The next morning, Sarah found herself in an unexpected conversation with Chief Rodriguez, who had been deployed with one of the teams involved in the coordinated operations. He had sought her out specifically to offer his congratulations and share some thoughts about her advancement. "Captain Mitchell," he said, using her new rank for the first time, "I wanted to congratulate you personally on your promotion and your new assignment." "Thank you, Chief," Sarah replied. "It's been quite a journey from that first briefing where you questioned my qualifications." Rodriguez smiled, shaking his head in apparent amazement. "You know, Captain, I've been thinking about that day a lot lately. I was so wrong about you, and not just because I underestimated your capabilities." "What do you mean?" "I thought competence in special operations was about physical courage and combat experience," Rodriguez explained. "But you've shown me that it's really about judgment, responsibility, and the ability to make decisions that affect people's lives. You've demonstrated all those qualities consistently." He paused, looking directly at her. "More importantly, you've changed how I think about leadership and what it means to serve. You've shown that respect isn't about rank or gender or background. It's about competence and character. Sarah felt moved by his words. The respect and admiration of warriors like Rodriguez had always been more meaningful to her than formal recognition or promotions. "Chief," she said, "you and the other operators have taught me just as much about leadership and professionalism. Working with special operations personnel has made me a better officer and a better person." "There's one more thing," Rodriguez said. "Word is already spreading throughout the special operations community about your new position and what it means. You're going to have young women in the military looking up to you as an example of what's possible." "That's both inspiring and intimidating," Sarah admitted. "It should be," Rodriguez replied. "But you've already shown that you can handle that responsibility. Just remember that every success you have makes it easier for the next person who comes along." As Chief Rodriguez departed and Sarah began preparing for the challenges of her new position, she reflected on the profound transformation that had occurred over the past year. From facing skepticism and having to prove herself repeatedly to earning the respect of the military's most elite warriors and being entrusted with unprecedented responsibility, every experience had contributed to her growth as a leader and professional. But perhaps most importantly, she had learned that true leadership wasn't about demanding respect or asserting authority. It was about earning trust through competence, demonstrating character under pressure, and accepting responsibility for the lives and welfare of others. The four generals who would soon stand at attention when she entered the room wouldn't be responding to her rank or position. They would be acknowledging her proven record of excellence, her dedication to mission success, and her commitment to the warriors she served alongside. Standing in the Pentagon corridor, wearing the silver oak leaves of a Navy captain and preparing to assume one of the most influential intelligence positions in special operations, Sarah Mitchell knew that her journey was far from over. If anything, the opportunities and responsibilities ahead would be even greater than those she had already faced. But she also knew that she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the confidence that came from proven success and the respect that had been earned through competence, character, and unwavering dedication to excellence.